People are calling out Ben Shapiro for his seemingly hypocritical stance on free speech and cancel culture, as Candace Owens was just let go by the Daily Wire. This clip circulated online where Ben Shapiro was very upset with Candace Owens' recent statements.
The question is about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I can't go with that. Yeah, and she still works for my company. And I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that
Candace Owens was let go, and while it's not, entirely clear, like there's not a stated reason, it certainly seems like the reason she was let go is because Ben and others at the Daily Wire viewed a lot of what she had been saying recently as anti-Semitic, especially this Christ is King phrase.
Except this Christ the King anti-Semitic crowd. Christ is the King. You are quoting scripture like Satan does in the Bible. You are quoting scripture to your purposes, and that to me is specifically wicked. You know, when you spit that phrase at Ben Shapiro.
And now since Candace Owens is firing, many people are wondering online, especially Christians, why they cannot say the phrase Christ is King. Is the phrase Christ is King anti-Semitic or something? And what if it's used in the context of a political debate? Does this mean that that person is being anti-Semitic? I think a lot of people disagree with this and don't believe that there's anything wrong with saying Christ is King, and that it's not really fair that in recent years, it seems as though people who are Jewish or people who are Muslim are allowed to be as proud of that as they want, but if you say Christ is King as a Christian, you're going to be condemned and potentially labeled as an anti-Semite. Now back to the title of this video. Putting aside this recent drama with Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and the issue of free speech, I don't understand why Ben Shapiro even has such a massive audience in the first place. Because to me, he's a very out of touch person with ironically terrible political instincts. He can argue for the free market and for like the basically political science 101, the merits of conservatism. So he can go into a college and eviscerate college students with seemingly airtight arguments about why conservatism is logical. However, when it comes to practical issues, Ben Shapiro is wrong all the time. I don't understand why people listen so much or take his point of view so seriously. Look at 2016. In my opinion, in 2016, he totally over-intellectualized the election and made it into this like kind of weird thing in his own head about Trump is going to get in, but he's not going to be conservative, and that's going to take the country off the rails, and we'll never be able to fix it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's a clip of him explaining that in 2016.
Are you concerned that Donald Trump could lose and Hillary could win and the country would just go to hell in a handbasket?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I think that for conservatives, this election was already lost because one of two things happens. Either he wins, in which case I have real fears that he's going to gut the conservative movement because I've already seen it. I've seen people lying for Trump, pretending that Trump is conservative, shifting their conservatism to meet Trump. And you see it in the polls. You see 61% of Republicans now say they're anti-free trade. And that scares me because I think the only future for the country is a limited government conservative, and Trump certainly is not that. Also, if he loses, it's going to be important. There are a group of people who say, look, we found him unacceptable from the beginning. And so if you try and hit him with us, well, don't hit him with us. We didn't back him.
Now, he has since flipped on this and now publicly supports Trump. But it sounded like from that clip and back in 2016, he was trying to position himself as kind of the smarter guy, the Republican that's smarter than Trump, so that when Trump inevitably loses, he could rise and be like, we told you so, we're smarter than him. And that brings me to my next point, is that in 2020, when the COVID vaccine, there's lots of uncertainty about that, he actually told his followers on Twitter, called them dopes, and told them to get the COVID vaccine. Now, whatever your view even in 2024 is about the COVID vaccine, in my opinion, it's incredibly irresponsible for a political commentator, Ben Shapiro, to be giving out medical advice, telling his followers, he has millions of followers, to get a vaccine that just came out. To me, again, very irresponsible. This is a political commentator, never went to medical school. And look, I'm no expert on the COVID vaccine either. But I think a lot of people would argue that Ben Shapiro saying that back in 2020 was a very ice-cold take and probably not a very smart thing to do. Ben Shapiro, during a peaceful kind of normal time, yes, he can rattle off Republican conservative arguments to college students, and own them, basically, people who don't really know how to combat his ideas. But in the real world, when things come up, I feel like he just can't handle pressure. He melts down. His instincts are, again, ironically, I think shit. 2016, mishandled that Trump situation, in my opinion. 2020, the COVID thing, I don't know why you're saying that. And then now, again, when he's in heat and he's been talking about this Israel-Palestine issue, the person talking about it, at least bringing up the Palestine point of view, Candace Owens, she's fired.
Like, I know conservatives are not interested in canceling other conservatives, and they're not going to go along with it.
So look, in my opinion, Ben Shapiro has been taking L's for years. And I don't really understand even who his core audience would be. Who is the average Ben Shapiro viewer? Because to me, he basically represents a wealthy American who happens to be Republican. Like, if you're a top 1% earner in the United States, but you don't like Democratic policies, you lean more conservative, perhaps you're a pretty big fan of Ben Shapiro. But other than that, I mean, does he really speak to the common person? I don't think so. But that said, I mean, obviously you're free to keep watching Ben Shapiro. Maybe you think he has great content. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.